Hi everyone, welcome back to Ivan the Star Story, and today we're going to talk about Skeleton Crew Episode 4, so let's go and jump right into it. First off, we see that they get out of hyperspace, and what looks to be an Aten, and I was like, okay, wow, we've made it back really fast, because it looks exactly like it. I was like, okay, that seems like a little fast, they feel like they moved really fast with this, for getting them home, and we still have 4 more episodes left. What the heck is going on? And then we see once they land, they realize that this is not their home. I'm like, okay, this makes sense. And then they go on after leaving Jod to be babysat by SM-33, and SM-33 is like turning on babysitting mode. Come on, baby, get in the ship. And he's like, don't make me count. And I was like, okay, I love SM-33. And later on in the episode, I was not expecting what happened with him at all, but we'll talk about that here in a second. But whenever they leave the ship, they have SM-33 watch Jod, and we see that Jod ends up going through all the kid stuff and finds Wim's Old Republic credits. But before that, we see the kids are talking, and they put together that Kimmy said that there were more planets that were supposed to have been destroyed. So they're like, well, maybe this one didn't get destroyed. So they start piecing that together. And then we jump over to Jod going through all the kids' stuff and realizing that Wim has Old Republic credits. He does the little bite test just to be sure they're real, and then we find SM-33, and then we see that SM-33 grabs him and is like, we have a thief on board, and Jod's like, no, it's me, Jod, and SM-33 is like, oh, yes, Jod, sorry, at Akron is messing with my senses, and Jod's like, wait, at Akron? And he's like, yes, at Akron. And he's like, well, and then Jod's like, well, do you remember anything about Aten? And SM-33 remembers for a second, and then we see that he doesn't. He's like, nope, can't say I've heard of any Aten. And we see that Jod grabs him and is like, well, maybe I can use your senses. Like, maybe I can show you things and you'll remember it. And then we jump back to the kids, and then we see they've been found by I probably am not going to be pronouncing the clan right, so please, the Talkin? I doubt I'm saying that right, so I'm sorry. We see that they find them. They take the kids after the Highteens? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Once again, I'm terrible with names. We see that the Highteens come marching by, before the Talkins take back, but we see the Talkins are like, well, what flag do you wave? And the kids are like, well, we don't wave a flag, we're just kids. And they're like, okay, and they take them. And they're like, you have a lot of, you are really brave for going into Hateen's area. And then we see they go back to their fort little area, and we see that they meet the captain of the Talkin, or the leader of the Talkin. And we see that they're like, well, and he's like, well, here we treat our kids as adults, and we all fight. And so that's when we see that, okay, this planet may look like Aten. We know it's not. We know that it's called, at Akron. So we know that it's, and we also are starting to get pieces together that the planets that they visit, I am, curious on how many planets they're going to be going to. That's a big thing, because I have a feeling they're probably going to go to a lot, and be looking for different star maps there on a way to get home. And I also have a feeling that, these kids, they're going to be running, each planet to them is probably going to look a lot like their home planet, but they're each going to be different. This planet looks like home to them, but it looks abandoned, and they're at war. Compared to at Aten, which we see that Wim goes on, we see that whenever they ask, well, is there, any star maps that we can use, to get home, we see that, the leader's daughter is like, well, what about the old, to them, it's the old, what is it called? I'm sorry. Shoot, what is it? Oh, crud. I don't remember what it is. Their old, cavern area, and we know it's not a cavern, but, I don't remember what it's called. The old lookout. Because that's what it is to them. That's what it is to the kids. That's what it is to Neil, Fern, KB, and Wim. That's what it is to them. So, the old lookout. And they're like, well, no, they're not. They won't survive that. And they're like, and then the leader's like, well, if they can survive training with these guys, you can go. And so we see that the kids start training. And then we go on to see that Jod takes SM-33 out and is like, do you recognize anything? Does anything? And he's like, yes, there used to be a tower over there. And there was this. And he's like, but there were warriors. Whenever Jod asks about treasure, she's like, well, do you remember anything about treasure? And SM's like 30, and SM-33 like, warriors. I remember warriors. And Jod's like, no, treasure. And SM-33 is like, warriors. No, I remember there being warriors. And then we see the warriors come out of the fog, which I thought was really cool. I really liked that. How they did that, because it was like, oh yeah, they're not there, and then they were. And then Jod's like, just get rid of me, because we know that he's already been captured so many times that he does not feel like going back through it again. Anyway, though, we jump to the kids' training. We see that Neil doesn't want anything to do with it. And then we see him go to the rooftop of the school area, and we see that that one girl realizes that he's just kind-hearted. He gives his food rations to those kids that were hungry. And we see that she realizes that he's kind-hearted. And then he goes on to explain that at Atten, they don't have to fight for anything. It's just peaceful there. It's their home. It's not anything like this. They're not at war for anything. And we realize that, yes, that their planets may look the same, but it's not. Like, I'm sure they're probably going to be going to a lot of different planets. This is just an idea that I have. I have a feeling they're probably going to be going to a lot of different planets, and they're going to overall realize that each planet is going, and I know I said this earlier, each planet is going to look like home, but they're each going to be very, very different. Like, this one looks like Atten, but they're at war, and everything looks destroyed. So I'm curious to see what happens next, with this, especially seeing, like, everything that happened, and then we see that once they go back down, they're told they're going to be leading a group into battle. And Fern's like, wait, what? No, we can't do that. And the leader's like, out of sign of respect, you will be leading a group into battle. And then we see they do their, like, thing, which I'm assuming means that once they've done that, anything that they say is out. What the leader has said is going to be done, is what I'm assuming, is what that means. Whenever they do that, like, tap, and then they tap their chest, that's what I'm assuming that means. Whatever they have just said means absolutely nothing. What the leader said is what's going to go down. So we see they go into battle, and they want nothing to do with this. And then we see that they're the ones that have to go up, and we see that Neil is nervous and doesn't want to, and we see that the leader's daughter comes up and is like, I'll go with him. And she's like, I find that whenever you're nervous, it's best to have a friend. And he's like, a friend, and then we see that Neil's mumbling all this stuff under his voice. And then we see Jod come out of Jod comes out of the fog with SM-33, and he's like, are you guys the Talkins? I know I'm not pronouncing that right, so I'm super sorry. And they're like, yeah, and he's like, and he whistles, like, he does this, like, weird whistle, and all their animals that were stolen by the Hytens, come running back, which I thought was, like, really cool. I liked how they did that. And then they're like, well, what do you want as reward? We can give you hideouts, we can give you weapons, we can give whatever you want. And we see that, he's like, I'll take the kids. And all the kids are super grateful, and Fern doesn't even know how to process it. But the thing is, I still don't know if I can trust him. I know that, like, the kids now trust him a lot more than they did, but I don't feel like I can trust him just yet. Just because, like, you kind of, like, it doesn't seem right. You've lied to them already. Like, it's not, I don't think I can trust you yet at all. You've stolen from them now, because we see later on whenever he's like, well, I found that they really like a good deal, and whenever I offered them some of the Old Republic credits, and Wim's like, did you steal my credits? And he's like, yeah, but it was to save your lives. So I have a feeling, I don't think I can trust him yet. I don't. And we see that the one girl, I don't remember her name, takes them, whenever they prove them themselves, takes them to the tower, what is their, I'm trying to remember what it's called, the supervisor's tower on that planet, or what was the supervisor's tower then, and she's like, this is where I stop, and we see that Wim tries to convince him to go, and she doesn't, and then just kisses him on his trunk, which was kind of cute, but at the same time, like, oh, that's kind of sad, but she's like, whenever I'm leader, I'll remember your ways, which is cool. Because, like, he talked about, like, how there was only peace where he lived. There was no fighting. And so she's like, maybe whenever I'm leader, I'll try that. And I thought that was like really cool how she's gonna try something different whenever she's old enough to lead. We see they get to the tower, they find all these different coordinates, and we see that they're all different star maps. And once they find at Atten, because we see that Neil's the one that finds at Atten, but it's gone. And we see SM33 remembers again for just a second. He's like, Atten, I remembered something. He's like, Atten, I was the one that destroyed that. And Fern's like, wait, when did you destroy this? And he's like, the last time my captain came here with me. And she's like, well, why did you destroy it? Why did you destroy the coordinates? And SM33 is like, what coordinates? And then we see that he's back to not remembering. He's like, can't say I remember any at Atten. And we see that Fern storms off. And then we see that while they're trying to devise a plan, because they don't know what to do, understandably, the only map to get them home is destroyed. They don't know what they're doing at this point anymore. At this point, they're just confused, lost, and want to go home. And we especially see that with Fern, whenever she's crying, because she just wants to get home. And she's like, I'm not a good leader. I couldn't have done anything of this. And she's telling all this to Wim. And then we realize that something in her memory clicks. And she's like, well, what if his memory was overridden? I did the same thing with my nanny droid back at home. And so she's like, SM33, memory override. Tell me everything you know about at Atten. And he goes on to explain the captain that was last here, because he's like, yes, at Atten. And we see that once he does this, and this is what I was not expecting, he's like, well, my last captain told me that anyone that came searching for Atten to rip them limb from limb. And he starts going after the kids. I was not expecting that part. I was like, wait, what? What do you mean? Excuse me, what is going on here? Because I was not expecting that at all, especially from SM33, and we see that Fern's trying to get them to stop, she's ordering him to stop, and it's not working. And then we see that Wim throws a stone at him to pull it away from his attention, and we see that SM33 starts going after Neil, sorry. Neil throws a stone at SM33 and starts going, and we see that SM33 starts going after Neil. And we see that gives Jaw just enough time to jump over SM33's back, and turn off the off switch. And we see that John's like, always go for the off switch, which I think was kind of like funny. Like this episode was like, it was full of a bunch of jokes, which I did enjoy. I thought they were kind of funny, like with the babysitting joke and all that. But then we see that the way the episode ends is Neil passes out and they're like, Neil? And then Wim's like, he fainted, and that's where the episode ends. So at the moment, I do feel like they are probably going to be going to a lot of different planets, they're going to go to a lot of different planets. As I said, they're probably going to be using as many of those star maps as they can use, and those coordinates, to try to find coordinates back to their home. And I was like, this episode opened a lot of doors that can be, opened a lot of answers and questions that I have, though. So I do have, a lot of questions still. And we still only have 4 more episodes to go, which is kind of insane to me. But we will definitely see how this goes. I have a feeling they're going to be going to more planets. Trying to figure out their way home. I don't know what they're going to do with SM33. I wonder if they're going to try to reprogram him. I have a feeling they probably are, because why not? SM33 has been fantastic up until this point. But once again, I was not expecting that with SM33. But yeah, so far I give this episode a 9 out of 10. It was pretty good. I can't wait to watch next week's episode and continue on from there. We didn't get any parts with the kids' parents in this one, which I was kind of surprised about. I would have figured that they would have at least shown something to do with the kids' parents, but we didn't get anything. And so I was kind of curious about that. And we didn't really we didn't go back to at Atten like we did in any of the last episodes. In the last several episodes, we would jump back to at Atten to see what the parents were talking about and all that with the kids being gone. What was happening there. We didn't have any of that in this episode. So I'm definitely curious to see what's going to happen. If we're going to be a lot more on at Atten on the next episode to see what's going on with the parents. Or if we're going to continue on with where we're at. But yeah, that was a really good episode. I look forward to next week. Let me know what you guys saw of the episode. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. And as always, God bless. Bye, guys.